Over the past few weeks, we've received a lot of different questions from property managers, board members, owners, and associations regarding how the pandemic is affecting them. And we found it to be really useful to provide the Facebook Live services so that we can answer a lot of these questions and get the word out there so that all of you can be making good decisions regarding your association. What are some tips for legally conducting a virtual board meeting, annual meeting, and special meeting of the membership during the COVID-19 pandemic? This is a really timely question because right about now, all of us are just getting ready to conduct our regular board meetings for April. And maybe some of you had to cancel your annual meeting or special meeting of your membership in March due to the stay-at-home orders or other things that may have come up pursuant to COVID-19. And so what we'd like to do is just start out by talking about how the pandemic has changed how we conduct our meetings. As many of you know, we used to conduct our board meetings in person and our annual meetings and special meetings of the membership in person. And right now, since the governor has issued the stay-at-home orders and since we are supposed to be social distancing pursuant to those orders and other county requirements, it's our opinion that boards should not be meeting in person at this time. And so how can Arizona associations balance the requirements of the open meeting law and also still, comply with the governor's orders and the county's requirements regarding social distancing? It's a balancing act for sure. But what we'd like to do today is give you some tips so that your board can continue to do business while the pandemic is ongoing and still comply with Arizona law so that you aren't going to be involved in any lawsuits for any of the decisions that you've made during the pandemic. And so I'd like to just start out by saying over the past few weeks, our firm has assisted a number of associations on running either teleconference calls or conference calls to help them conduct their business. And I would say that probably 95% of those calls have been really productive, and associations have been able to continue on with their business. And one kind of really interesting part of the new situation that we're in is that a lot of these board meetings and annual meetings are significantly faster than they would be if you were doing them in person. So I'm a silver linings type of person. So one of the silver linings of the COVID-19 pandemic very well could be that we are having significantly shorter meetings and accomplishing more business while we're having these teleconference meetings or actual conference call meetings. And just so as a baseline, let's talk about what is teleconferencing. The system that our firm has been using significantly over the past 4 weeks is a system called Zoom. And Zoom is a system where you have either a laptop, a computer tablet, or a smartphone, and you dial into the Zoom app. And during the teleconference meeting, everybody who has dialed in can see each other and hear each other. And we found that the Zoom application has been wonderful to use for many of our clients. I know that about 2 weeks ago, there was some negative press regarding the Zoom app and some privacy issues that people were being hacked into. But I've received assurances from Zoom that that situation has been corrected and that if you update your app, if you downloaded the app several weeks ago, if you update your app, now the conference calls will require a password and that there haven't been any more instances of that since about the first occurrence that happened about 2 weeks ago. So Zoom is an excellent system. We've been using it. We feel that it's easy to use, and we felt that the boards have been able to use it effectively to do their business. Our firm has been helping HOAs and condos to set up, organize, and troubleshoot these Zoom meetings. So please keep us in mind if you need any help with organizing a teleconference meeting for your association. We're here and we're happy to help. What I can tell you from being in the trenches, the Zoom trenches, is that many associations, the first time that they use Zoom, it's different. And so anytime you do something that's different or new, sometimes there are some challenges that you need to overcome. I would say that 85 to 90% of the people can just use an instruction sheet that our firm provides, and you're welcome to contact us to obtain that for your residents. And they can just use that instruction sheet, and they can What they can do is they can dial in and they have no trouble. But we've noticed that the first time we do the dial in, that occasionally there are some people that have difficulty. And so what we suggest is that you have a troubleshooter and have a place where somebody who's having difficulty joining a teleconference to be able to call and get assistance right away, kind of like a hotline. And our firm's been helping with that too. We have one person on our team who's the designated hotline whenever we're having a Zoom call for a board meeting or an annual meeting or a special meeting of the membership. And we just walk the person through step by step, and after we have that the call with them, everybody's connected. We haven't had any calls so far where somebody has not been able to do it. So we would suggest that you do that. Okay, so what are some tips that we can give you so that you still comply with Arizona law and, are able to, still comply with the law even though the pandemic is ongoing? So let's start out first with the notice requirements under the Arizona open meeting law. Associations still have to provide notice to the members at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. And so that requirement is something obviously that cannot not be followed. It needs to be followed. And what many associations are doing is in the notice, they have the date, the time, and a statement that due to the pandemic, we are now conducting our regular board meeting, our annual meeting, our special meeting via teleconference. And then also include with that notice specific instructions that can be used for that person to dial into the conference call. I noticed something kind of fun that my children are now e-learning, and they had kind of some suggestions on, what people should and shouldn't do during teleconferencing. And we've added those now to our suggestions on teleconferencing. And I mean, obviously the ones for the kids are kind of funny. It's things along the line as you can't teleconference in from bed and you can't be in your pajamas. The ones for the associations are a little bit different. We're not going to have any attire restrictions, but something that we would want to put in there is that, there can't be interruptions of the board during the board meeting. And I'll talk a little bit about how we can control that. And that also that people should be keeping their device on mute while the meeting is being conducted so that there's no background noise. Just so you know, there is an override by whoever is the organizer for the meeting. And interestingly, the organizer for the meeting, which in many cases has been our firm, in some cases the management company if they're conducting the meeting by teleconference, they can automatically mute somebody if they're not following directions. So that's kind of a nifty little thing that the Zoom teleconferencing is allowing us to do to keep control of the meeting. So remember that we have to give the notice. All members are still allowed to participate in the meeting. And that's what the law says in Arizona. And so they can participate during appropriate times or before the board takes formal action on something. And so what we're suggesting to our boards when they're conducting a virtual teleconference board meeting is that you still have your regular owner forum at the beginning of the meeting. And then when you go into the meeting, you mute all the non-board members so that they won't be contributing or interrupting business. And, then the board conducts business. If an owner wants to provide some sort of feedback, or they want to, before the board takes formal action, comment on something, which they are allowed to do under the law, there's a feature on Zoom where they can raise their hand. And whoever the organizer of the call is, they need to be watching for that. And if it's an appropriate time where the homeowner is allowed to speak, typically that would be before the board takes formal action, so before the board votes on something. Then they can turn off the mute button. The organizer can turn off the mute button, allow the person to ask their question. And then, the board can either answer or respond or just say thank you for your response. Now, sometimes you get people who are a little bit lengthy in their discussion items, the homeowners are. And if you don't want to have your meeting hijacked by that, there's also another feature on Zoom that you can use. And that would be that you would allow them to ask their question electronically. So it's almost like a text on the Zoom system. The owner can just write down their question, and then the board can stop and answer that question. And that's also a really good strategy to keep your meeting moving along. Or if a lot of people have comments, you can sift through the comments quickly and you won't have duplicative questions. You can answer, 5 people ask the same question. You can answer that question just with one response. So I think that's really a good tip. Another suggestion is regarding the agenda. Remember that under Arizona law, we are required to provide an agenda to the members. And what we've been suggesting since there was a new law passed several years ago, indicating that the meeting topics that were going to be discussed at that meeting needed to be provided to owners, at the time the notice of the meeting was sent out. So for several years now, we've been suggesting that associations also post the agenda when they post the meeting notice. Another feature and we continue to suggest this even with the teleconference meetings that we're now doing. Another suggestion is the meeting organizer at the start of the Zoom call. What they can do is they can place on the screen, the Zoom screen that everybody is participating in the meeting, a copy of the agenda. So everybody has it handy right in front of them. And that's kind of just a neat feature that you can use when you're using Zoom. Because then everybody will have it at their fingertips. Maybe they didn't take a picture of it if your meeting notice was posted with the agenda on the common areas. Maybe they didn't get a copy of it. And so it's nice just to have it handy. And we would suggest that boards as best practice do that in your virtual meetings. What if somebody doesn't have the technology to attend? We're starting to see that, or maybe some people are going into shutdown. They don't want to attend a meeting via Zoom. They want to do it the old way. Here's what we are suggesting. A couple of great things that you can think about doing would be, number one, we don't suggest meeting in person during the pandemic. And I think you need to be firm on this. And I think if you go back to our first Facebook Live where I talked about boards needing to exercise leadership, this is one of those times. There will be people that will not be happy about the changes in technology. And they will still insist that the meetings be canceled, or that, we still allow to have 5 people in the room with 10 feet, between them. We don't recommend that. And I want you to know that that is not a best practice in our opinion. We think that you should be converting now to the virtual meeting using teleconferencing or using a conference call. In terms of what if somebody doesn't have the technology to attend, as I said before, some suggestions that we have would be that the Zoom meeting can be taped. And we would encourage boards to do that, use that feature. And when the person is setting up the Zoom meeting, the organizer, there's just a box that you click that indicates that the meeting's being taped. And so if somebody can't attend live because of technology issues, we can email them the video of the meeting, and they can watch it then, shortly after the meeting has taken place. Another suggestion would be to get meeting minutes out of the meeting that you've handled virtually as soon as possible. If your board hasn't approved them yet, which is likely going to be the case, you could just say that they are the draft minutes for your association, and to send them out as draft minutes with a notation that the minutes could be changed once the board does a final approval of the minutes. So those are some suggestions for associations conducting virtual meetings, especially suggestions for people that might not be adapting to our new normal with the pandemic and want us to continue to do business the way that we used to do it. I would like to just say a couple things. Well, first, I want to thank the Mulcahy Law Firm team for really stepping up and doing an outstanding job for our clients and for those in our industry who are in need of practical legal advice. I'm really lucky to have such a wonderful team, and we all have been working really, really hard to provide information to the associations that we work with. So I'd like to do a shout out for them. Second, I'd like to do a shout out for the property managers who are working overtime right now, helping associations navigate all these difficult situations that are coming their way, and they're doing a great job. I've really seen our industry come together, as well as the boards. Remember, the boards are having to make all these difficult calls on closing common areas and having their meetings by virtual meetings, and taking some flack from people, frankly, for having to make difficult decisions to protect the health and safety of owners. So great job, board members, for having the leadership and being able to have thick enough skin where you can make decisions to protect your neighborhoods. And last, of course, we want to thank our healthcare workers and the essential workers in Arizona who are continuing to work and providing, a service to all of us, so that our lives can continue in the future and that we can help people in the future.